Hello friends and welcome to the Grave Detective channel. Today I'm standing at the Kleine Noorstraat cemetery of the village of Ooglede, 5 kilometers northwest of the city of Roeselare in Belgium. The grave we are visiting today is the grave of...
Whose grave are you looking for?
Jules Sap.
And did you ask the municipality if he was buried here?
Yes, I did. They even gave me a map.
But the grave is not here anymore.
No, it isn't.
Is the name of Jules Sap somehow written on that monument?
The monument for the persons whose graves were removed? No, his name is not written down there.
So, he is still in his grave.
No ID.
And what are you going to do then?
I've got an ID. The story I'm about to tell you today is that of Jules Sap.
Julius Victor Sap, best known as Jules Sap, was born on the 20th of September 1890 in Zwevenzeel, a village 10 km northeast of Roeselare. He was the son of Constant Sap and Melanie Van Eyre, and the family had a total of 8 children. In Zwevenzeel, Jules was working as a flax farmhand. Jules was also a regular at the Café de Zomerweg. In 1911, a fight broke out between customers of this café. A man pulled out a knife, Jules pulled out his own as well, wounding his assailant. The country guard arrested Jules, and Jules was sent home after his hearing. Jules wasn't going to prison for the time being, but he would have to appear in front of a judge. Jules was very worried, and so was his father Constant. In early April 1912, Jules' father decided that Jules had to disappear, to leave. But where? To America. In fact, Emeric, the eldest son of the Sap family, was due to leave for America and had already bought his ticket. Jules would therefore be living in Emeric's place. Emeric would get his own chance later. So, on the 10th of April 1912 in Southampton, Jules Sap boarded the Titanic as a third-class passenger. A few days later, on the 14th of April, the Titanic struck an iceberg. Jules Sap survived. He explained how he survived on many occasions, but the various accounts he gave vary on many points. The following story is nevertheless one of the most likely. At the time of the collision with the iceberg, Jules was asleep in his bed. He woke up and tried to reach the sun deck. By the time he reached the sun deck, all the lifeboats had already left. Good swimmer, Jules decided to jump into the water. He then attempted to approach various lifeboats and heard gunshots. He later learned that these were warning shots fired by Officer Lowe. As he approached one of the lifeboats, lifeboat number 11, a woman pulled Jules towards her, speaking softly to him and grabbing his hair. A second woman assisted the first, and a few minutes later, Jules was aboard the lifeboat. The sailor suspected that someone had sneaked aboard and began searching for this person, but was interrupted. At the same time, the woman who had pulled Jules out of the water showed him that he could take shelter under a long dress. At 7 a.m., lifeboat number 11 approached the Carpathia, and its occupants were thus rescued. Upon his arrival in New York, Jules Sap was taken in by various people before leaving for Detroit, his original destination. There, he worked in the beet fields in the summer and in the Ford and Hudson automobile factories in the winter. In 1914, he returned to Belgium. After the German invasion, Jules Sap was briefly detained by the Germans, who wanted to ensure that he was indeed Flemish and not American or Canadian. In 1917, he married Adèle Neetknecht from Ooglede. The couple had 3 children: Suzanne, born in 1918, Cyril, born in 1921, and George, born in 1925. This third child was born in Canada. Indeed, in 1923, the family had moved to Canada, to Tilbury, Ontario, where Jules Sap worked in tobacco farming. But Adèle grew homesick. In 1930, the family returned to Belgium, to Ooglede. Jules continued to work as a farmhand. During the Second World War, his son Cyril was deported by the Germans and forced to work in Germany. He nevertheless survived the war. In 1944, Jules Sap participated in the liberation of his village in 2 ways. First, along with his son Georges and another villager, he got into a fight with 2 Germans guarding a gun. Both Germans were killed during the fight. Second, he pointed out the position of German machine guns to Polish tanks approaching his village. Throughout all these years, Jules Sap remained anonymous. In 1952, on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, Jules got interviewed by journalists. 7 years later, in 1959, the movie A Night to Remember was showing in theaters. A television journalist, Paul Verbruggen, recalled Jules Sap's interviews from 1952. A new interview, this time filmed, was conducted and Jules Sap appeared on television. The journalist introduced Jules as the last Flemish survivor of the sinking of the Titanic. After this television appearance, the movie distributor in Belgium had an idea, inviting Jules Sap to Brussels to view the movie and share his thoughts on it at a press conference. Jules accepted. He went to Brussels, watched the movie, and explained that it was very realistic. From that moment on, Jules got invited and paid by various movie theaters across the country to tell his story as an introduction to the movie. Jules Sap traveled the country accompanied by his son George and by a translator for the theaters located in the Walloon region. These trips to Belgian movie theaters lasted 5 years. Little by little, Jules Sap's introduction became structured and took on the form of a question and answer session between George and his father, accompanied by occasional humor. In 1962, Jules Sap was interviewed again by a journalist on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. 3 years later, in 1965, Jules and Adèle moved to Roeselare, where Adèle died on the 9th of June of that same year. Jules died of a heart attack a year and a half later, on the 15th of December 1966. His death notice reads, "De nog enig overlevende man van de Titanic," the last survivor of the Titanic. At first glance, Jules Sap seems to have been able to overcome the trauma of the sinking. However, during my first visit to the cemetery in Ooglede, the son of the former mayor told me that Jules had suffered from the survivor syndrome. It's worth noting that in one of his testimonies, Jules indicated that he would never forget certain words he heard that night. Rescued in the middle of the night, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, by a woman who tucked him into safety under a long dress, Jules died without ever seeing his rescuer's face. And to return to his brother Emmerich, whose place he had taken about the Titanic, well, Emmerich eventually never left for America. He became a police officer. But on the 15th of January 1915, in Kaaskerk, near Dixmude, a shell ended his life. He was 26 years old. His name is listed on the war memorial at the Bruges police station. Jules Sap was the last Belgian survivor of the sinking of the Titanic. Friends, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and I hope to see you soon for another video. Bye!